What if a child's footsteps could shift the heartbeat of a nation? What if the power to save lives didn't come from palaces or politics, but from bare feet crossing a desert? This is the story of a sister's love, a village on the edge of collapse, and the day the president went undercover and changed everything. From whispers of despair came a scream for help. And one girl answered it, not with noise but with courage. A journey that defied heat, fear, and distance. A leader who, listen not with his title but with his heart. Stay with us, because by the end of this video you won't just believe in change, you'll feel it. It began in silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the silence that comes from being forgotten. 20 kilometers outside the capital there was a village that didn't exist on most maps. The kind of place where names faded faster than roads, where people prayed more than they planned, and where children grew up fast not because they wanted to, but because they had to. In one small hut, barely held together by tin and twine, there lived two sisters. They had no father, no mother, just each other. The older one was 12. The younger was barely 7. No one remembered their birthdays anymore. But everyone in the village knew their names, not out of affection, but because they were still surviving. The elder sister? She was a force, waking before dawn to fetch water, sweeping the home, watching over her little sister with eyes far older than her years. And the little one? Bright, innocent. Her laugh still echoed, even when there was nothing to laugh. About they shared meals that weren't enough, blankets that couldn't keep them warm, and stories told by firelight about a world beyond the hills. They believed in each other because that's all they had, until one night, when everything changed. The little girl stopped laughing. Her body trembled. Her breath came shallow. Her skin burned with fever. And suddenly the older sister wasn't just a sister anymore. She was a guardian, a decision maker, a child, faced with a choice no child should ever have to make. The village doctor had left years ago. The nearest pharmacy? 20 kilometers away. But to a girl with no bike, no money, and no help, it might as well have been on the moon. And so she stood at the edge of the village with dry earth beneath her feet, and the desert stretching endlessly. Ahead, she looked back once at her sister, burning up on a straw mat, and then she stepped forward. Because when love is real, it doesn't wait. It walks, even through hell, and the sand was only just beginning. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't write a note. She didn't tell the neighbors. Because in her heart she knew there wasn't time. Her sister was slipping fast, and every minute spent asking for help was a minute stolen from her life. The desert loomed ahead, a cruel, shifting expanse of heat and silence. But the girl didn't flinch. She took one step, then another. Bare feet, parched lips, eyes sharp with purpose. She remembered stories, tales her mother once told of women who crossed mountains to save their families. So why not her? She was only 12, but her courage burned hotter than the sun. The sand bit at her ankles, the wind threw dust in her face. Still, she moved forward. 10 kilometers in, her body ached, but her thoughts were only of the little girl she had left behind. With each step, she repeated her sister's name. A mantra, a prayer. By noon, the heat was unbearable. Her vision blurred. Her legs staggered. She fell once, twice. Still, she rose. A truck passed in the distance. Too far to see her, too fast to stop. But she waved anyway, screamed into the wind. No one heard. The pharmacy was close now. Closer than ever. She could see rooftops barely beyond a shimmering haze. But her legs? They betrayed her. She dropped to her knees. The world spun. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her voice, barely a whisper. Help! My sister! Please! And then she collapsed, face down in the dust. But fate? Fate was watching, and so was someone else. Someone who didn't look like a president, but who carried the power to change everything. He didn't look like a leader. wearing a dusty shirt, faded jeans, and sneakers too worn for a man of status. He could have been anyone, a traveler, a local, a nobody, but his eyes, they didn't miss a thing. He saw her first, the small body in the dirt, the tremble in her fingers, the blood on her lip where she'd fallen, and he ran. He didn't hesitate, didn't ask who she was, didn't care. He bent down, lifted her gently, and whispered, "I've got you." Behind him, his small entourage looked confused, concerned. One man stepped forward, a whisper on his lips. "Sir?" But the man raised a hand, quiet, firm. "This girl needs medicine. Now." He turned to the others. "No questions, no delays. Get the car. Go, bring everything. She has a sister." Back in the village, the team scattered. No one argued, because though he looked like a common man, he spoke like someone used to being obeyed. The girl opened her eyes, barely, saw his face. Mumbled, "My sister, sick, help." He nodded. "I'm already on my way." As she lost consciousness again, he carried her to the car himself. No cameras, no speeches, no one to witness what would become a turning point, except for him, and a girl who had crawled through fire for someone she loved. He looked out at the horizon, then back at her. "You're brave," he whispered. "You remind me of someone I used to know." And with that, the motor roared to life. A race against time had begun. Only this time it wasn't a girl walking alone. It was a nation running with her. The car flew over dust-covered roads, sirens off, lights off. But inside, a storm was raging. The young man held the unconscious girl in his arms, checked her pulse, wrapped her in his jacket. She was burning. Her breath, shallow, too shallow. Beside him, a medic unpacked a small emergency kit. "Just keep her cool," he said. "We're 10 minutes out." They reached the pharmacy in record time. The convoy blocked traffic, the doors flung open. He stormed inside. "Where's your fastest fever medication? IV kits? Hydration packs? Now!" The pharmacist froze, then moved. Fast. In minutes, they had a full supply. Back in the car, they loaded it all, no cost, no forms. The man turned to his driver. "To the village, full speed." Helicopters were dispatched ahead. By the time they reached the village, a medical team was already there, setting up a triage station. Locals watched in stunned silence as machines, doctors, and soldiers swarmed their tiny square. Then came the medicine. The girl's sister lay barely conscious, tucked into an old mat. The medic ran, bent beside her, and within seconds a needle was in, a bag of fluid raised. Her chest rose slowly. Then again, the color began to return to her face. The crowd gasped. A miracle was happening before their eyes. The older sister, still recovering, was being treated in a makeshift emergency room. She blinked slowly, saw the man beside her. "Did she use make it?" she whispered. He smiled. "Yes, because of you." She turned her head, tears slipping silently. He sat beside her, held her hand gently. "Today, you did more than save your sister. You changed everything." And then, as the village buzzed with life for the first time in years, he stood, walked toward the others, and whispered something that would echo far beyond the sand. No village, no matter how remote, should ever suffer like this again. The next morning, the sun rose over a changed village. Generators hummed softly. IV drips still hung from makeshift stands. But it wasn't just the machines that brought hope. It was what the man said next. He stood in front of the villagers. No podium, no suit, just dust on his sleeves and fire in his voice. "My name is Emmanuel Koba," he said, "and I am the president of this nation." Gasps filled the air. Mouths opened, eyes widened. The man who had saved the girl, who had raced across the desert, wasn't just a good Samaritan. He was the country's leader, and then he made a promise. "From this moment forward," he said, "no child in this country will have to walk 20 kilometers for medicine." His voice broke the morning silence like thunder. "We will build medical stations in every village, across every province." The villagers stared, too stunned to speak. "We will work with humanitarian partners. with local governments, with anyone who believes that access to healthcare is not a privilege. It is a right. He turned to the little girl, now sleeping, peacefully in a proper bed, and to her sister who sat beside her, exhausted but smiling. "This is the face of courage," he said. He knelt beside the older sister. "You didn't just save a life. You reminded a leader what true service looks like." She blinked back tears. He stood, looked out over the village, and declared, "We start today." The team began making calls. Blueprints drawn, trucks already moving. Change didn't wait for permission. It had already begun. And it started with a girl, a fever, and a choice to walk when everyone else stood still. Months passed, but the story never faded. Newspapers ran the headlines for weeks. Television crews visited the village. But the girl? She stayed the same. She went back to school. She walked the same dirt paths. But when people passed her now, they didn't see a poor orphan. They saw a symbol, a reminder. In every classroom across the country, teachers shared her story. They called her the girl who walked for love. But she didn't want titles. She didn't want fame. She just wanted her sister to grow up healthy. And her village? It was no longer forgotten. Within 6 months, a small medical center stood at the edge of town, solar-powered, fully stocked, staffed, every day. And across the country, trucks moved. Shovels dug, change echoed, carried on the footsteps of one brave girl. The president kept his word, not because of politics, not for press, but because he had seen something in that moment by the road. He had seen leadership in its purest form. Sacrifice. At a speech 6 months later, he pointed to a photograph of her. Some leaders wear suits. Some ride in limousines. But the strongest one I ever met walked barefoot through the desert for someone she loved. The crowd rose in thunderous applause. And somewhere, in a small village, that girl sat quietly with her sister beside her, smiling, because she didn't just save a life, she changed a country. She didn't set out to be a hero. She only wanted to save her sister, but in doing so, she woke up a country. She reminded the world that love can be louder than distance, that courage doesn't wear medals. It wears dust. And when a president saw her, he didn't see a child, he saw leadership. So what about us? What if we believed like she did? What if we chose love as boldly as she chose to walk? This is more than a story. This is a call to see the forgotten, to hear the whispers, to act before it's too late. Because the next miracle, it might be waiting just 20 kilometers away. Share her story. Speak her name. And when the world says, "You can't," remember the girl who walked, until the world answered, "Yes, you can."